This is the Full View. Welcome back. Two seafarers were evacuated from a life raft at sea earlier this week after their yacht sank in the Atlantic Ocean, some 2,400 kilometers from Cape Town. For this unbelievably incredible rescue story of pure as well as sheer luck and dedication, let's extend a very warm welcome to Acting Chief of Maritime Rescue Coordination Center, Captain Ravi Naicker. Captain, a truly unbelievable rescue story. Thank you so much for joining us. Look, talk to us about how this operation all began, leading to the dramatic rescue of the two seamen.
Okay, good evening to you, and thank you for the opportunity for us to share as the Maritime Rescue Coordination some of the collaborative efforts that we do in making sure that seafarers off the South African coast, as well as between South America, across to Australia, down to the Antarctic, that they are looked after, and to know that they have peace of mind that somebody is actually watching. We were alerted as a Maritime Rescue Coordination Center, which is a 24/7 operation center based in Cape Town. We were alerted just after midnight on the 14th of March that there were 3 sailors that were in a yacht undertaking a voyage from South America through to Cape Town and had a stopover at the Atlantic Ocean island of Tristan-da Cunha. We were alerted that the vessel had struck an object and was taking in water, and that they needed to be rescued. The alert was sent through a device which the skipper on board the yacht. It was a Garmin device, and what normally happens, you have a satellite service provider, and that goes through from the device to a satellite station, and then down to an Earth station, and then we were alerted as the MRCC through Garmin, the service provider based in Germany, that they have an alarm that has been activated together with an emergency position indicating radio beacon. So in this case, there were 2 devices that were sent out a signal, which in most instances, when that happens, there's high likelihood of a distress alert, and for which we then need some kind of activation to render assistance. So in this case, we were alerted that we got the position, the approximate position just off Tristan da Cunha, some 140 miles from Tristan da Cunha towards the Cape Town side. And in that case, we then requested a vessel to render some assistance. And through what we call the SASA Convention, vessels have an obligation to make sure that they can divert from the courses that they're following in order to render assistance. So in this case, there was a motor tanker on its way towards Africa and making its way to the Far East, called the motor tanker Front Pollux, which then diverted from their course and made their way at their speed to the actual stricken position of the stricken vessel. By the time they arrived, there was no sign of the yacht, and in terms of the position that they had seen, there was no sign of any yacht or any life raft. They then continued and had a very vigilant watch, and thank you very much to the master as well as his crew, who then spotted the yacht, which then spotted the life raft, and then started to make plans in order to have the 2 sailors that were on the life raft itself, have them recovered onto the vessel to provide some kind of shelter and some food and keep them warm until their next destination. So that's a breakdown at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Captain. I mean, is this even a normal practice for the center in cases of shipwrecks that are actually far out at sea? And also talk us through your outputs as the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center and how different your operations or mandate are from that of the National Coast Guard.
Well, at South Africa at this point in time, we don't have a National Coast Guard. It is something that people are lobbying for. So at some stage that we can have a National Coast Guard. At this point in time, we have the SAMSA, which is the South African Maritime Safety Authority Act, and we get our legislation from the SAMSA Act of 1998. And one of the key objectives of the Act is to safety of life and property at sea. And then coupled with the legislation that gives us our mandate is the SASA Act, South African Maritime and Aeronautical Act from 2002, which then established the center, a maritime center in Plattekloof in the Western Cape. It is a 24 operation center. Our monitoring also extends in terms of the SASA Act to aeronautical rescue. So any aircraft that's flying around, we have the ARCC established. That's the Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center. So jointly, we try to ensure that we keep coverage and render assistance both for aircraft as well as maritime rescue. So it is a 24/7 operation, and we have a number of systems in order to monitor traffic off the South African coast. For example, a satellite automatic identification system, similar to what you have on a vehicle as a tracker. We are able then to identify. So in this particular incident, when the yacht sank and we received a distress alert, utilizing the satellite AIS, we were then able to clearly identify ships that were closest to the actual distress position. And in this point, we had the motor tanker front poleaxe, and then through Telkom, which provides a land sea station for communicating with ships, they were able to then make contact with the front poleaxe and then render assistance. So what we do not see with the naked eye off the South African coast at any given point in time, there could be in the region of about 400 vessels off our coastline and within our exclusive economic zone, which we monitor. So we, as Maritime Rescue Coordination Center, is also the eyes and ears of what's happening. And as indicated, South Africa is a member of the International Maritime Organization, which is a United Nations body, and there's constantly reviews on looking at best practices to ensure that seafarers are safe, as well as the property on board that they're sailing, and then render quick and fast assistance. It is rather unfortunate in this case that there were 3 crew on board the vessel. Unfortunately, the skipper succumbed. In reports, he had sunk with the vessel, but if you read some of the media broadcasts, it indicates that he was quite brave in making sure that his 2 crewmen were actually safely in the life raft before he could actually clear himself from the yacht itself. And unfortunately, he went down with the vessel, as was reported by the 2 crew members that were on the life raft and that were rescued. So this is a 24/7 operation, and we are watching and keeping an eye out for vessels and seafarers at sea. Thank you.
And Captain, speaking of those 2 sea crewmen, are you able to tell us about the status of their health and well-being at this stage?
The reports from the master of the vessel that they are in good health. They were exposed to the elements out in the life raft for probably between 6 to 7 hours before being recovered and taken on board. And this is a super tanker, so it has all the bells and whistles. So they kept them warm, kept them fed, and they were well rested. And then the journey took close on 2 days from the position in which they were recovered from the sea to get to a position outside of Cape Town where they were disembarked. Reports are that they were in good health, and they were making plans with the embassies to make their way back to the USA as well as to Switzerland in one instance.
Very lucky
They are in good condition, yes.
Thank you, Captain. Very lucky too, indeed. Now, in closing, maritime disaster management is hardly in front page news, Captain, as it's mostly disasters, I mean, that are quite rare or not highly reported on. But reality is that they do happen. And it says here that the ship collided with a floating container. And according to the World Shipping Council report, up to about 1,382 shipping containers are actually lost at sea. Quite a lot to encounter besides those massive rogue waves out at sea, it seems. So the coordination of such rescues must be quite a mission. So talk to us about how long does it even take to get assistance to those in distress but are far out at sea?
Well, the first thing is to make sure that those that are making their way out to sea have some kind of position indicating beacon that's taking some kind of personal responsibility. So in this case, the Maritime Organization clearly lays down some good practice to make sure that any vessel over 500 gross tons has a emergency position indicating radio beacon on board, which can be activated in case of any distress, as well as the crew can have additional devices. Like in this case, it had a Garmin device in order to alert. But it is the responsibility of the vessel and those that are sailing to make sure at any given point in time that they have necessary contact with satellite and then in turn into a shore-based station so that those positions are well, so that people know where they are and they can follow those tracks and are easily identified. In terms of the report of the containers, there are strict guidelines on how vessels are stowed in terms of the different containers and how they need to be secured on board a vessel. In this case, it was reported that they hit a container, but it's difficult to confirm that report. And there are occasions when containers are lost over the side in adverse weather conditions. But in this case, it's a speculation, so we are unaware. It could be in multiple sources or some other kind of obstruction that the yacht had struck and people sinking.
Captain, thank you so much for this moving story. That is Acting Chief Maritime Rescue Coordination Center, Captain Ravi Naicker there.